welcome to the Two Unlikely Christians podcast. I am comedian and recovering idiot Pat McCool, and now across the great blue ocean to London, England, where we find our co-host, world-renowned psychotherapist and addiction specialist, and a man who once broke into Windsor Castle to use the bathroom just so he could find out what type of toilet paper the royals used, Richard Pearl.
Thank you, Pat, for that introduction. It could probably get me like hung for treason. But yeah.
As long as you didn't get caught, Richard. What kind did they use?
They're going to come after me now, though, aren't they? You know, with the big fur hats and, you know, red jackets, you know, parade me off to the Tower of London. I'll be there for years, Pat.
Well, you know what? Well, hopefully at the Tower of London, they use the same tissue paper that the royals use. So you'll have that going for you.
Well, I'll be able to let you know when I'll write to you. You know, I'll scratch out a letter.
Scratch out a letter and make sure you put Richard was here in the stones on the Tower of London before they take you off and hang you or draw and quarter you or whatever. You guys have a history of some really nasty ways of ending people's lives.
Yeah. It's funny. I was looking at this the other day. It's in the history of this, and we burning was quite common until a few hundred years ago. You know, burning people at the stake, hung, drawn. Do you know what hung, drawn, and quartering involves?
Yeah, that was the one that really got my attention. That is what would have kept me in line had I been.
But it's like they continue to abuse your dead body and do terrible things to it. You know, like I
mean, you're dead. It's like, in America, we hung people, but they just cut them down, and that was it. Put a bullet. Okay, the bloke is dead. Let's see what we can do to him now. So
yeah, let's really drive the point home. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, now that we've enlightened everybody's day by getting them to picture being drawn and quartered, let's move to our topic of the day: the blessings of struggle. And I have to tell you that the greatest blessings in my life has come from the times of my struggle, because you look back with such gratitude. So much of the peace and the joy and happiness I have comes from the gratitude of coming through times where I struggled, where I was devastated with something. And everybody goes through this. If you're a follower of Jesus, if you believe in God and you keep your faith in God, you will come through it. And you will look back and realize some of the best things that ever happened to you were because of the struggle that you went through. And people that are going through that now should know that. I've had so many times I can't even count, and I'm not going to go through all of them. But and I don't know if, God's testing me, or if I never know what that all means. I just know we all go through struggle. And if we put our faith in Jesus and get our strength from him, that we will come through on the other side in a much better situation. And that struggle will end up giving us great peace, great joy, and great gratitude. And gratitude is the biggest recipe for living a life of joy and happiness. You can't be sad, you can't be upset, you can't be depressed when you're focusing on gratitude and all the things that God has done for you. And if everybody that's listening, if you go back through your lives and you look at it, you will see there were times when God brought you through things even before you came to faith, because he knew you were coming eventually, because as we discussed in the last episode, God chose you and he's had his eye on you just like he's had on me and Richard. And I touch on that in my book sometimes, where there's so many examples. But just let me start with an example of, in my book where I mention I went through my life of a heathen. I end up in this jail cell and come out. And I'm going to, I'm waiting to see if I'm going to get free room and board by the state of Mississippi and in an orange jumpsuit. And I don't, and I'm starting to put my life back together and getting things together. I don't know if I even mentioned this in the book, but I started dating this girl. I went to work at a company that my brother's father-in-law owned. He owned one of the biggest manufacturing company in the city where I live. And I go to work there, and it's actually kind of a depressing place. Guys it was a paper company where they made envelopes and they cut paper and stuff. And all these guys walking around missing fingers was a little alarming. and, um, I think I was making probably pulling in a good $115 a week. So but it was actually quite a motivating experience, because after a few months I was like, okay, I got to go make something of myself. But I met this girl. Remember, I'm really down on my luck. I've had my moment where I'm starting to follow God, but I got a long way to go. And I start dating this girl. I fall for this girl. Uh, we're going to get married. We even had the marriage certificate. That's how close we were. So, even though I found myself in this bad situation, I found this woman, I think, of my dreams, and I'm smitten. I'm in love. She's a country girl, and I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. She lives way out in the country. I even went out. I bought some cowboy boots, Richard. Bought some cowboy boots. You'd be proud of this. Got a John Deere hat. Bought a fishing pole. I'd never fished in my life, but I was going to be a country boy. I started listening to Barth Girth and, whatever country music I could find, and I was ready
You were all
to
in, Pat, weren't you?
all in, all in. Oh, probably eating the jerky. I would have eaten the jerky, chewed the tobacco, all the stuff, the stereotypical stuff that you thought that I did. I was probably doing it back then.
Yeah,
Got my fishing
moonshine,
pole. What's that?
moonshine.
Moonshine. Yeah, could have brewed my own moonshine, the whole 9 yards. And she lived in a trailer way out in the country. I could have easily set my still up out there. I just the whole thing was, I was in. And a woman will do that to you. And fishing, like, I went fishing one day to learn how to fish, and I was enjoying it because it was very peaceful and it was kind of at the end of the day. And then a fish hit my line, and you know what an animal guy I am. I felt so bad for the fish. And I'm like, geez, what have I done? I got this hook and this fish. I'll eat all the fish in the world. I just don't want to be the one with it dangling on the line. So that was my end of my fishing, but I was full on country boy. And then one day the girl dumps me, just out of the blue, just breaks up with me and dumps me. And I'm crushed. And women can dump you in a way that really hurts, because they'll tell you the truth. It's like, you know what? Because she had met this other guy. She's like, no, I'm now seeing the, and I'm like, well, what does he have that I don't? She's like, a good paying job. Okay. And she was right. The guy worked offshore, he made pretty good money. And so there I was. And I was heartbroken. So I've started my journey following God. I'm trying to put my life back together, but now this is a massive setback. I am not only heartbroken, but I am being dumped because I am a total loser. I'm knocking back $115 a week. I'm probably going to only have about 8 fingers, if I keep working at the same job that I'm working. I'm double knit on parade. I was one of these guys that didn't know how to dress. I didn't have sisters. I was the guy that would buy like the members only jacket 5 years after they went out of style. Do you remember the members only jacket?
I'm aware, because I've spent time over in the US. I'm aware of members only, but we don't have it over here. But yeah, no, I'm aware. You paint a picture, Pat. You know what I mean? I can, in my mind's eye, I've got a vision of you. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, the point is, not only am I a total loser, not only have I been broken up with, not only have I been dumped, not only am I not making any money, I'm working this dead end job. I don't know how to dress, so I don't have the things going to, collect the woman that I'm wanting to. And I tell the story in my book of how the day I do meet my wife and I'm going to pick her up, and the family, the Favre family, you're not familiar with them. Do you know who Brett Favre is?
No.
Read my book? Okay. Well, he was a Hall of Fame quarterback. He played here at Southern Mississippi. Basically lived with me his last year or two in college. His brother lived in one of my rooms, and Brett and I spent a lot of time together. And I actually took his wife to the hospital when she had her first baby. Which is another story. But their family would all come to my house before. I had a house right off campus of the college, and they would come to my house to tailgate before the game. It was right behind the football stadium. So we would all eat. The whole Farr family would come, sisters, aunts. Well, he had a sister. And I was going to pick up my wife for the first time I had met her. And I was walking out of the door, and I had on this really nice pair of dress slacks. Because by then, I'm in the insurance business. I'm now making a good bit of money and everything, but I still have not learned how to dress, which is important to attracting a quality girl. I'm sure Shireen, picked up on your ability to match clothes. I had on a pair of slacks. I had on penny loafers with a bite taken out of them because one of my dogs had bit the top. And I had on, yeah, I had dogs that slept with me. But the pants covered that. That wasn't my biggest offense. My biggest offense was I put on a 100% polyester football shirt that said the University of Southern Mississippi, and it had an eagle on it. And in other words, it just did not match. But I didn't know it. I thought I was showing style going to the game. I'm walking out, and Brett's little sister looks up and says, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm going to pick up my date." "Why? What's the problem?" She said, "Well, okay, never mind." She said, "I don't want to embarrass you." And I said, "Well, I would rather be embarrassed now in front of the Farr family than I would when I go pick up my date." So my wife goes, and so Brandy takes me, but she said, "What do you got in the closet? You got any other shirts?" She goes in the closet, starts going through my dress shirts, pulls one out, and says, "All right, put this on, roll that sleeve up, unbutton it right there. You're Gucci. Take off. I'm ready to go." I go on the date with my wife. It all works out. Obviously, we get married within 100 days before she discovers that I don't have a fortune stashed in the Caymans. And weeks later, after we were married, she told me, she said, one of the I said, how did I, that I reel you in so quick? She said, one of the things about you that I noticed when you came to pick me up that night was how well you were dressed. She said, because a well-dressed man, that says a lot about them. And then I took her back there and showed her the 100% polyester double knit on parade I was wearing. And she said, "I would have not gotten in the car with you." So it all worked out. But back to my story. I'm crushed and all of this. So I continue my faith in God. I'm growing. I'm following God. My faith in I haven't really given my life up to Jesus like I told you later, but I kept going. And that led me to getting the job, in the insurance business. I started going back to school, led me to meeting my wife, which led me to getting the position with the Fortune 500 company, and led me to everything that I have now. 35 years of marriage, 3 daughters, 8 grandchildren, filled with incredible joy. And all because that girl dumped me. And that girl, without getting into its life, did not work out well. I'm not saying that in a celebratory way, but it just was not a path and wasn't something that the point is, I can remember thinking, I'm believing in God. I'd started believing in God a year or two earlier. And I'm like, well, how could this happen? I think I'm believing in God. I'm following Jesus. And now this has happened. I thought following God meant everything works out for you. That is not the case. What it means is everything does work out in the end, but you are going to go through struggles. And that's just always been an illustration. I always just look at my wife, who just is this shining star to me that has been the cause of so much joy, so much happiness, the person God had for me. And I just think, wow, had that not happened. But I have a good memory, and I remember how horrible I felt at those times back when I was at one of my lowest points. God was working, and he was preparing. He had a plan for me, and that's what I just want people to take solace in. When you're struggling, you are really going through something that is setting you up for great joy and peace. And I'm sure you have some illustrations yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And like a phrase that I really like is sometimes the best gifts come wrapped in very strange packages. And I mean, for me, it was like being, sometime into my sobriety, many good things happening in my life externally. But being so unhappy and lost and kind of wrapped up in different like non-drug and alcohol addictions, deeply like troubled and yeah, just miserable, man, like so empty. And then it was it, getting really caught out for some of the stuff that I was doing, and having to go back into treatment, with years of recovery behind me, and that was where it really happened for me. That was where I really found my faith. That was where I really started to experience it. Was in this period of like extreme pain, and it was being so lost and being so empty and being so hopeless that brought me into the church in the first place, and that was where I started to come to know Jesus, right? And then, I got baptized and there was some relief from the kind of, my demons, right? We use that expression. That's kind of part of our common, like, language, even if you're not in faith, right? You say, like, he's got his demons, right? And I have my demons, right? And actually now I know what that means, right? But like, so I was baptized and I got some relief from all these things that were plaguing me. And I went through the Purpose Driven Life book with a group of friends and like Christian friends, and I had this, I had this sense that my life was supposed to be different. But and I would pray and I would ask for my life to be, please show me what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. Please help me be less wrapped up in like the world. Please help me be like less, just less lost really in all of the things of the world. And then it happened, man. Do you know what I mean? My life changed in really like quite a dramatic way in that, a lot of stuff that I'd been up to came out and, I had to go away and do some serious like psychological work on myself, right? But it was in that place in the, in the desert of Arizona, right? That things started to happen to me. There was a chaplain there who was an amazing man. Best friend, really. There's a man that became one of my best friends, came into the facility as a patient who was and he was a real man of God, not without his own struggles, because that's what he was doing there. But yeah, like
He was a pastor, right?
Yeah, he was.
It was going.
Yeah. And that was where it really started to happen for me. And it was just in that pain, and there's just that absolute desperation. There's something about getting to that place of brokenness where you can just let him in. For me, it was like, actually, like, that place of brokenness is the place where I realised that actually, like, what I'm doing doesn't work. Like, what I'm doing doesn't work. And what I need to do is allow someone else to take the reins of my life, and like we spoke about before, it's like I don't do that. I'm not an A-grade student at that. I'm not someone that sits in faith, acceptance, trust, hope, like every minute of every day. Far from it, right? But like, I do have a deeper, when I look at my life, I can see that actually, like, I was led to a place where things could change, and I remember feeling so, when I was in my, chaotic, active drug addiction, I remember feeling so lost, like that I'd started to pray. I'd started to get on my knees and pray, and like I didn't really, I certainly wasn't praying to Jesus at that point, but I had a belief in God. It talks about that in the Alcoholics Anonymous big book. It says, deep down in every man, woman, and child is a concept of God, right? And so I had this idea, and anyway, the point being, when I look back over my life, like, I can see that I was like in the care of, and I was taken care of, and I was guided. And there were, a number of times when, one in particular, as where I should have died, right? It was very close to death as a result of the stuff I was doing. But yeah, I was led to that place, and I really believe that, but I would say the greatest periods of growth in my life have been born of the greatest periods of struggle, simple as that, simple as that.
Yeah. Well, that's been my experience. That's where you get closer to God. That's when you get a much bigger awareness of Jesus and Him in your life. So you get closer to God. If you do that, when you're in the struggles, if you put your faith in God and put your faith in Jesus, get closer and get closer. Like I said, I don't know if God just tests us on purpose. He knows we're going to go through it. There is a scripture, Philippians 4:13, and I think gets misunderstood a lot of times. It says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Well, a lot of people misconstrue that into, I can do anything. Well, like, you know, I can't be the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints if I'd started working out when I was 2 days old. I can't be a nuclear physicist if I tried. I can't do that. That's not what the verse is saying. People think of it like, I can do anything I want if I just have faith in God. What that verse is really, if you look at the context of that verse, I can do
Mm.
all things. Good. Yeah, I can
No,
do
got
all things through Christ who strengthens me. What he's saying is you can get through anything. I can
mm.
do all things. Not that I can accomplish all things. I mean, if you have a calling, you're going to have a struggle, and you can accomplish that. There's part of that, but a lot of it is the gist of what he's trying to tell us. You can get through anything. There's nothing you can't get through if you put your faith in Jesus, because he strengthens you. And people just need to remember that. As a great example that you gave, because your journey and your struggle brought you closer to God. It brought you to the understanding of Jesus. It brought you to the point where you gave it all up. And it has led you now to this incredible, joyful place you're in and about to get married. And it's just, I don't know if you're like me, but I daily am reminded of the things I went through. When I'm watching TV or watching something about prisons and jail, I think when I was 18 years old, I could have easily been in one. I thank God for everything. Sitting on my porch looking at the lake, drinking water, I think about all of the times I went through financial struggles, and God was always there for me, always worked out. It's just led me to this intense sense of gratitude. I don't know if you have that. Um, but you're now about to marry this beautiful woman. And do you look back like I do, and or do you just kind of leave the past behind? It stays teed up in my mind of all of the bad things that I went through. Not that I'm focusing them on in a bad way. It just gives me joy. It's like, oh wow, look how fortunate I am.
Yeah, look, so for me, it's like there's this because I know what it is to have nowhere to live, right? I know what it is to like live with to be scared every day. That like someone's going to catch up with me, that be that the police or people I owe money to. I know what it is to be like scared a lot, to not, to be wondering where I'm going to sleep that night, to be wondering if I'm going to have anything to eat. I know what it's like to be scared of, like, am I going to be able to get the money together today for the drugs that I need to stop me being sick? So I know what it is like to, I know what it is to like live in that place. So like, although I think different to you, Pat, in some ways, in that like it's not an intense gratitude that I feel all the time, but there's this base level of gratitude. Like just, even for having a bed, to have a bed to sleep in, every night, and to have a front door that I can close and I know it's not going to come flying off its hinges. But, like to be able to, to have choices, like in what, like, am I going to go, am I going to go and eat in a restaurant tonight? Or am I going to get something out of my fridge, which is for the foot? You know what I mean? It's like that never escapes me. You know what I mean? That never escapes me, like how fortunate I am, yeah,
Yeah, that's
100%.
what. Yeah, that's the gratitude. That's you. It gives you great joy. I get great joy out of everything that I have or everything that's going on because of the struggle. Had I not gone through the struggle, I wouldn't have the intense gratitude that I have now, and you wouldn't have that. Oh, this feels so good laying in the bed. And I just want people to know that are out there that are going through struggles. You're going to come out of it, and that struggle is going to give you great joy as you go on through life. And if you do it right, if it causes you to put your faith in God, it causes you to learn about yourself, you get closer to Jesus, you're going to get that peace and joy in life, and you're going to benefit greatly from the struggle. And if people just know that when you're going through it, hang in there. I just to close with one story of what I did talk about in my book. You remember the TV show that I had created? You know, just to make the small to condense this. gave up a job making an awful lot of money. I go out, I'm doing comedy. I'm in New York, and people kept telling me, you got this amazing story. Why don't you? Because the guy, you remember the New York guy that I ran into a
Yeah.
bunch of really funny characters. So we start writing this sitcom, and it's a very funny sitcom. I'm not just saying it myself. We sent it to a producer. Um, I didn't know how to write a sitcom, so I hire a guy to start helping me with it. And this guy's a professional writer. And after a few sessions, he said, "Look, I'll make a deal with you." He said, "I'll start charging you if you give me co-writing credits on this because we're going something with this. We're going somewhere with this." And we, so I make that deal, and he said, "Then I'll hook us up with my producer that's working on. This guy's doing a lot of stuff. You ever see a movie called The Deuce? A show on HBO called The Deuce?
Aware of it. I've not seen it.
Yeah." Um, it was a pretty big hit. Well, this guy was the creator, the original creator, the producer. So we write the show. I'm excited. I got the writer on board. I send the show to the producer, and the producer loves it. We're waiting to hear. He's flying to LA, and he sends a things back. He sends a message back saying this is great. He wants it. He buys the show, and he's going to pitch it. He brings a guy named Montel Williams on. You don't know, probably don't know. Do you know
I know
Montel
him,
Williams?
Montel Williams. Yeah, he was a talk show host, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Montel comes on board, and they form a partnership just to pitch this TV show that yours truly created. Just started putting together. Had no clue what I was doing, but they loved this. Montel was reading the script, and he's bouncing up and down in his chair. So I think I'm on my way. All the struggle, because I didn't include in the book a lot of the struggle I went through in the comedy business, but man, it's it's not easy building yourself up to have some success. So it's all about to pay off. As a matter of fact, I ended up going to this party after he's bought it and they're getting ready to pitch it. And then when I met Montel, I go to this party in New York City where Macy Gray is performing. At the party, there's only like 150 people there. It's like $25,000 to get into the party. The Prince of Luxembourg is there. I don't know who the Prince in Luxembourg, but you know how impressed I am with you Royals. I'm like,
Anything like
this
that.
guy,
Yeah.
I'm in a party with the Prince. Something's going on here. And I get on the elevator, and Danny Glover, you know who Danny Glover is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get on the elevator with Danny Glover riding riding up to the top. And I act like you'd appreciate this from me. I act like I know him because I step on the elevator and there's a couple other people on there. He looks at me, I look at him, and I said, "Hey Danny, how you been?" Not how you doing, how you been, like I've seen you before. And he's like, "Oh, fine, how you been?" And so we walk off the elevator. I walk beside him like I'm buddies with Danny Glover. So I'm high-hatting it. And I end up sitting next to this woman who does the Fox Business News, Maria Bartiromo. I'm sitting next to her. I'm really feeling like I'm about to step into the big business. And so these guys go to LA and they pitch to a number of networks. And he sends back a message and he said, "Look, we're in a marathon session with Netflix. They're really interested in this. And we are on," he said, we have found our network." And he's coming back and asking me questions about, how they're asking him. He doesn't, you'd have to understand how Hollywood works. They don't really want you there with them. They want to control the situation, but he's asking me questions. The point is, I feel like we are about to close this deal. I'm about to get this TV show going. So excited. And while we're waiting, they said it's going to be a few weeks. At that time of year, Hollywood kind of closed down, or the movie TV business. And he said, we'll know in a few weeks, but they're really liking this. So I'm pretty sure we're going to get a pilot out of it. So I'm driving through New York City, listening to a baseball game, a Mets baseball game. And I won't bore you with this, but I became a Mets fan because I did a show at Citi Field for a guy named Ron Darling. He's the guy that does the play-by-play for the Mets TV uh, games, and he has a charity over there. So I went over and did the comedy show, and I met all the Mets players. And after the show, I talked to him for about 20 minutes. So naturally, since I talked to this guy for 20 minutes, I felt like we were like this. We're obviously buds at this point. So I'm considering myself friends of these players. I'm being sarcastic, obviously, but so I'm listening to the game. As soon as the game ends, and said we had breaking news. HBO producer, Hollywood producer, or whatever they call it, Mark Henry Johnson. This was the guy's name of Mark Henry Johnson Production, has been arrested in the death. And then they named the woman, she's a well-known doctor in New York City. So he had been having this, not really an affair, but he was kind of living the Hollywood life and doing a lot of drugs and the cocaine, and had a relationship with her. She OD'd at an apartment in Chelsea with him and the drug dealer. Although the drug dealer in the TV and movie business, it didn't like Skeeter on the corner. It's not like what me and you dealt with.
Yeah.
This guy's living in a really big doing. And they don't want the police to come, so they don't call 911. They act while she's having this part of this overdose. They take her downstairs to try to take her to the hospital because they don't want the police coming there to the drug dealer's house, and she dies in the vestibule of this Chelsea apartment complex. He calls 911. They come. He walks away. She's very well known. He made a horrible decision and he was arrested for it. And the guy ends up doing a year in a federal penitentiary. And that completely blew our TV show up. That was it. And you have to know how Hollywood works. You don't get a crack at it 2 and 3 years. He kind of sold. That guy has come back and gotten his life back together. Actually, it has brought him to faith because I had just written my book. The book ends with him telling me, we found our thing, and I'm saying, wherever God takes me, I'm fully prepared because I know it's joy and peace. It's very ironic because I don't know that after I finished the book, while we're getting into publication, a couple of weeks later, this is going to happen. But this happens, destroys everything. And boy, if you think, I am really lost because I had made this deal with God that I'm going to get into the entertainment business and you're going to make me a big deal. And then I'm going to tell everybody that I put my faith in you. Do you see how that works? God wasn't on the other end of that deal, but that's how I decided it in my mind. So I'm sitting here and this is completely blown up. The show's dead. I'm sitting there. I had postponed while I'm working on the show, writing the book. I have, not done a lot of the shows that I've been doing. So I am absolutely devastated. But a funny thing happened. The book came out, and I'm thinking, I'm talking to God like, God, I don't get this. I've done all this. I've put my faith in you. I thought this is what you wanted me to do, and where do I go from here? And then the book came out and some people started reading it, and somebody at a church or a recovery center read the book and invited me to come perform and do my show. Well, I had maybe a PG-13 type act. And I cleaned it all up, wrote a G-rated show, and then included my testimony in the show. I went and did it. I'm on stage and I'm going through, I'm telling doing my comedy, and then I get to the point where I start telling my testimony. And Richard, I started crying, just bawling in the middle of the show. I got these chills that came all over me, and it was just this incredible joy. And it was almost like I could hear God going, this is what I want you to do. Mm-hmm. This was the purpose. The purpose I had chose was a lot of money, a lot of fame, a lot of fortune. I had a great thing that I had lined up for myself. He had something else, but I had never experienced that type of feeling. And it was just this incredible joy that came from using my comedy to spread the gospel, to spread the word of Jesus, and the feeling that I got after that. And someone approached me after the show with it, telling me, look, I was just crying listening to you. Because I make jokes about some of the stuff that I did, but then I tell them, I run into people all the time, they were like, you don't know what I did. And I'm like, I bet I can top you. And I start telling them, and I realized I'd made a difference in a person's life, and that's what God wanted me to do. That, Richard, led me to what I do now, which is, has filled me with joy. I love doing comedy, but making a difference, living in God's purpose. So I thought that everything was going down the tubes, but God was using it and God was working. God plays the long game in all of our lives. He knew what you were going through all the time you were going through it, and he knew where you were going. Think of the difference that you make now. I've had people that have sent me texts like, I've listened to what Richard, your English friend, has said, and it's made such a huge difference. You're making this difference in life, and it's just given me incredible joy to find that purpose. And I just wanted to share all that to people that are struggling. Your struggle is leading you to joy. Your struggle is leading you to a peace and a happiness and a purpose that God has for you. And it's far better than anything you've experienced. So I just wanted to share these stories with those that are experiencing the revival and the newfound spiritual awakening, or anybody that's just like us that's going through struggle. You will put your faith in God, put your faith in Jesus, you will come out of it. And I'm going to close with one scripture, and you could add whatever you would like, but Isaiah 43:19. Do not lose hope in times of trouble, for God is working on the unseen. His hand is steady, and his timing is perfect in bringing good out of difficulty. Everybody should,
Pat.
They should write that in their heart, and they will come through it. So, any closing thoughts before we leave there, Rich?
Just thanks for sharing that, Pat. Really, like, I think it's just we have these ideas, don't we, about where our life should be going, you know, and we become so attached to them, you know, and you know, the loss of them can feel so devastating. But you know, sometimes we just need to surrender to the fact it's not our path. There's a saying in the fellowships, you know, the 12-step fellowships. It's like, plans are things you make while God's laughing at you.
Yes. I'm sure. Yeah.
He's off again. Do you know what I mean? With his ideas. You know, I sometimes think, you know, I've experienced success in my career. When I look at it, like, there's 2 or 3 key decisions I've made. You know, like, not many. The rest of it's just life's just sort of happened. You know, and I think we have this idea that our hands are like so securely on the tiller of our life. You know, and we're the one plotting the course, and it's not the, you know, it's not the case. When I really think about it, when I really look back at my life, it's like there's 2 or 3 key decisions that I made. You know, walking through the doors of a 12-step meeting. You know, making the decision to move to London and work for myself. You know, like, I don't know, man. The rest of it's just kind of happened, really. You know, so yeah, 100%. I think it's understanding there's a plan and a purpose, and you know, another saying that I like from the fellowships is like, if you're going through hell, keep going. You know, yeah.
That is a great way to end it, because I didn't think about that, but that is my life. 2 or 3 decisions, and the rest is just bumbling along. There are times I look back and go, man, how did a fool like you? That was the name of the TV show, by the way. Not McCool, it was McFool. Like, why would a guy do such foolish things? And I, like you, sometimes think God is just sitting up there and he goes, hey, Peter, Gabriel, y'all come around and watch what this moron is doing right now. So great way to end it, Rich. Great talking to you. And now you can go back down and help Shireen put together some more of that IKEA furniture, my man. So God bless you, brother, and everybody out there, and we will see you next time.
God bless you all. See you later.